So before I introduce Melba, I'm going to turn it back over